In this tutorial, we'll show you how to use an input box. This input box, this is the macro text that we'll be using. What we'll be using this for is if we wanted to calculate for a square area, if we have a length, what is the area and then cost. But instead of recording a macro that does the entire thing, we want to go ahead and show how to do a for loop for that macro. So that macro will use a for loop, but how many times we want to call that is dependent on how many rows we have. So in order to call it 9 times, we need to use this input box here, which calls a value. It will call actually bring up a message box where you have an option to enter a value in that box. That value will then be used in the formula. So we'll go up here to macros. You double click, and we're going to go ahead and make a new one. Input box. Go ahead and create that. And we're going to go back to our cell here. We're going to go ahead and copy this and place it. Oops, I'm going to exit out of there, exit out of the cell, and then you come back over here to place it in your formula. Control V to paste. And we're ready to go. Now I wanted to explain the formulas real quick. This is the integral part is the input box. We are going to set a value. This is our variable value. It's going to be set to whatever is put in that input box. So we, after that's done, we will go ahead and hit range C2 select. So we're going to select C2, which is 450. Next we'll create another variable called cost, and we're going to set that to the value of the current cell, which would be C2 at that point. Next we will move the cursor to B4 down here, which is the first area calculation. Then we have a for loop here, and you can see that this for loop is called for from I is equal to 1 to, instead of giving it a value here, we're setting that equal to the variable that we have calculated or that we've set with the input box. Once that's done, we will go through 3 different things. The first thing basically calculates for the active cell value. In this case, the active cell first off is B4 is going to be equal to, if I go 1 column to the left, it's going to basically square that, so that's taking the square area. And then active cell offset 0,1 value, so the value of the one to the right, that would be the cost here, is set to the active cell value, which is still the area multiplied by the cost. And finally, we'll go ahead and move the cursor down 1. Since it's still in B4, we're just moving it down to B5. Then we'll iterate that for as many times as it takes to calculate all the way, in this case, 1 through 9. So we'll hit save there, close that, go to macros and hit the input box, and we'll run that. As you can see, it brings up this box, which is input a number between 1 and 10. You can see we do have 9 rows, and so we'll put 9 in there and hit OK, and sure enough it calculates everything for us. So that's the basic function of input box. It's very handy for being able to input a number that's dependent on your situation, so you can always have the user input that value.